stand-up talks all around the country. A lot of people say to me afterwards, especially people who are new to the world of truth, they said to me, how do you live through all this, John? Doesn't it just drive you crazy? I live in fear. I'm terrified of everything that I read on the news and blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, don't live in fear. The only thing that you have to fear, it's a glib saying, but the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. They want you to live in a fearful state. So don't. All you have to do, compartmentalize all this stuff, stick it to the back of your head, and only bring it out when you need to do it, when you're researching or when whatever, writing, blah, blah, blah. Just live your lives, love your family, love your friends, wake up every morning, just think it's another day today, it's a beautiful sunny day for a change. And I'm going to have a nice time today. I'm going to live my life. Don't let this dominate your whole life. Just put it to one side. So that's my words of wisdom.
John HAMER, thank you so much for coming on my show. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Well, thank you. Great. Look, I love your books. I don't even know why I came so late to your books. I've never been recommended to, and probably for a good reason. But, you're both of your books. By now, I know you've written a bunch of other books, which I should actually read as a Bitcoiner because, Bitcoin is about money, central banks, the whole criminal, system that's like at the root of the whole system. But yeah, let me just, I don't want to read your biography or anything, but it is really remarkable. Your background, let's just say for the, just short points, and like you were born and raised in North England. You spent most of your working life as a corporate slave to the IT industry before seeing the light and finally escaping from the dreary, soul-destroying confines of the corporatocracy over 20 years ago. And since then, you've been a full-time professional, investigative geopolitical researcher, analyst, public speaker, and author, having written and published 8 books, probably more by now to date, including this one, co-authored with your very good friend, also writing partner Shannon Rowan. And your first book was The Falsification of History, which I read, and The Falsification of Science, which I've all read, and continue to be a great success and established your reputation as a writer of the real history of truth, as opposed to the usual lies we are fed by the corporate media in all its forms on a daily basis. And of course, you've written a bunch of other books, which I have to really catch up to, about Olympic, Titanic, about the monetary central banking system, which I definitely need to read, as a Bitcoiner. Is there anything like essential I've missed out, or why don't you just please give you a little bit of the background, and welcome to the show again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, that just about sums it up, I think. I've been doing it for about 28 years now. It was the death of Princess Diana that kind of made me see the light, if you like, and ever since then, I've just been going down various rabbit holes, and of course, the more rabbit holes you go down, the more rabbit holes you find, and so it's just been a continual progression in that way, and leading to where I am now. You were only incorrect on one thing. I've got 9 books now, not 8. I've just recently published another one, which is a novel, which is my second novel. And
is that sort of a semi-fiction, or?
Yeah, it is. It's a fact stroke fiction book, if you like. It's a fictional story, but it's interwoven with lots of truth and truth bombs, and it's about what's going on behind the ice wall in Antarctica. Basically, that's what it's about.
Wow.
It's a fictional story, but it's based on things like Admiral Byrd's diary, Admiral Byrd's TV interview. And we've woven, it was a joint project with my friend Andy Ross, and we've woven all kinds of other elements into it about what's going on, and it's called 60 Degrees South, because that is the line beyond which you're not allowed to go. You're just not allowed to go there. People will say, "Oh, well, I know people who've been on cruises to the Antarctic." Yes, but it's all very controlled. It's all very monitored. You're not allowed, even if you go to Antarctica, you're not allowed to go for inland. You're only allowed to go to the very edge of the coast. But yeah, I mean, if you try and venture below 60 degrees south under your own power, either by boat or by plane, you will be turned back. There's no question about it. You will be turned back. And if you don't turn back, they will shoot you down and blow you out of the water. We know this is true. This is not me just making this stuff up.
So many times. Weird thing is, John, is this like the Antarctica thing? I mean, I've been in this rabbit hole of, thanks God, you don't have like to explain everything to me, but I'll be probably much more deeper into the rabbit hole than I am. But it's like weird. It's like one of the facets, one of the aspects that, we've been growing up with. We heard about Antarctica. It's like a lot of other like subtopics or sub aspects, but it's like, the thing that makes me really, as a father, we're parents, we probably also have children. It's like, the thing is, I also grew up, sort of an elite school in Vienna, in Austria, but you never get to even to that, you never get even to the notion or to the thought of like questioning things, questioning the narrative, questioning whatever you're fed, whether it's natural sciences, geography, history. After many decades in my life, I'm like, I'm sorry, my language, what the fuck? I've been like growing, waking up. It's like, what have I missed? Why have I never questioned, like, what is an electron? Where is Antarctica? Why are we never, allowed to go there? But I'm sorry for my rant, but go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it is a fact that we are actively discouraged from looking for the truth. We are absolutely programmed to just accept what the mainstream tells us. So it's not surprising that people don't really know what's going on. It does take I kind of hate this phrase, but you kind of have to go through this waking up process whereby you actually realize that you've been lied to all your life before you can actually start to investigate, what's really going on. And what's really going on is totally different to the world that we're presented with by the mainstream. So it's absolutely true.
Now, of course, it depends. What are we talking about? I mean, okay, when we're talking about like ancient, history, ancient facts. But let's just, let's look at the last, whatever, 100, 120, 150 years. We could start with the start of the Federal Reserve, or even before that, maybe beginning of 1900s. I mean, the thing is, I'm asking myself often, or I think a lot of people, it's like, why has this been going for such a long time? Whether it's, suppressed, compartmentalized technologies, secret technologies, the money banking, central banking system where, the shareholders, the controllers, probably most of them, we don't even know by their names or faces who are really in control of that whole thing. Like how are they above, the law, criminal and civil immunity, literally, if you look at the Bank of International Settlements and the statutes. It's like, how has this been going on? All the lies, propaganda, falsification, the title of your book, Falsification of History and Science. How could this go on for such a long time? I mean, and without even, going to that point, like, why have I never questioned this? Why have I never researched this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good point. And the reason is that, it's not just been going on for 100, 150 years. This has been going on for millennia. And, excuse me, I'll just take a drink. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, it's been going on for millennia, and basically it's because the people that control us now are the same bloodlines and the same families that have been doing it for centuries, millennia, if you like. And so these controllers are just the same multi-generational families, and they know exactly how to shall we say, make us. Keep us in a little box of fake reality, because the only way that, because let's face it, there's only a few thousand of them and billions of us. The only way that a few thousand people can control a few billion is by creating this fake reality, and this is exactly how they do it. So I mean, that's a kind of a glib answer in a way, but that's the truth of how and why they can control us.
Yeah. I have a good friend also who is also a Bitcoiner and podcaster. You should definitely talk to him. I mean, Daniel Prince is his name. And he's, he also written a book about like homeschooling, and going like, being independent and
Yeah.
not letting your kids like being indoctrinated. And he's a total, since also I've known him, a little gone into the rabbit hole of homeschooling, of how maybe to sort of, free the real potential of your children. And can we talk about like, do you have like a perspective or I don't know, or maybe for our listeners and viewers, like, what is your take about this whole on a global scale, this educational, school system and the whole propaganda narrative? It starts probably much earlier in kindergarten, or I don't know, maybe in mother's womb, but this is why we've been so indoctrinated and dogmatized and brainwashed and I don't know, totally hypnotized. Is there like, because that's the, I think, one path to the solution, like how can we free at least our children from this whole,
Yeah, I mean, again, great question. I mean, homeschool. I homeschool my youngest. And he is a perfectly normal, for want of a better word, healthy adult now, and he's got a very good career. He never took any exams. You don't need to do that. It's just a propaganda. Education is just a propaganda machine. It's a sausage machine that produces good, non-independent, free-thinking citizens, people who are just content to abide by the rules of society. I'm not advocating law breaking here, but what I'm saying is, people need to think outside the box, but education stifles that idea. It actually actively discourages kids from being free-thinking individuals. And all education is doing is training young people to be cogs in the great industrial machine. It's training them to be, do the paperwork, run the machines. That's all it's about. I mean, what on earth use is trigonometry? This is just one example. Why the hell do they teach you trigonometry at school? It's pointless. I mean, because I'm not saying that trigonometry is valueless, and this is just one example, by the way. I'm just saying that it's not important unless you're actually following some kind of a career using that. I mean, you could say that about lots of things. There's a famous saying that it goes something along the lines of, "Well, another day has gone by and I didn't use geometry once." And it's true. We don't in our general lives. So why do they pump it into us at school? It's because they're training you to be corporate slaves. And that's the top and bottom of it. They don't allow any free thinking. I remember when I was at school, I mean, even before I kind of became aware of what was going on in the world, I used to ask really awkward questions of the teachers, and I got a reputation for being an awkward little so-and-so. And, people don't do enough of that. We just sit there and we absorb all this stuff that they pump into us. And it's because they're propagandizing us into believing that what they tell us, what their fake reality tells us, is the absolute truth. It's a very clever system. And of course, why is school education compulsory, as it is in most countries, most Western countries anyway, or all Western countries, I would say? Because they don't want you to miss out on the propaganda. It's as simple as that. If you don't send your kids to school in England, for example, where I'm from, obviously, you would get taken to court and fined. You might even be imprisoned if you do it often enough. So why? Why is education free? Why? Because they want to catch you young, and they want to create these little cloned people who don't think about what's really going on, but they just obey their masters in society and keep the cogs of the machines running. That's a very convoluted explanation, but, it kind of touches on it.
I studied law in Vienna. I also did my PhD. I even wrote, because it was a topic, it was like at that time where the disclosure of the internal documents of the tobacco industry came out,
Oh yeah.
And I wrote on the product liability of the cigarette corporations based on the once, secret documents and testimonies, insider whistleblowers, in America traveled around. But that was sort of my starting point, questioning everything. It's like, because I used to be a cigarette smoker myself. But that's not what I was going to say. I was more in general terms. I was like, it continues. This whole thing, this whole indoctrination or omission of facts, of truth, continues into the university system. I mean, I was a law student, but at that time, but I heard from so many people like who study economics, because Bitcoin has to do, for example, with the principles of Austrian economics, with rational, logical, principles of economics. Like when you expand the amount, when you print more money, well, of course, the money gets debased. It loses purchasing power. I mean, these are like, and everything else with all the tentacles, all the symptoms we have in our society and our civilization is to, let's say, to, I don't know, 90% going back to the, again, as you written about it, to the monetary central banking system, who have like total criminal immunity. So, and then, for example, medical students, they never learn anything about nutrition. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 hours or something like in the whole. I mean, this is the crazy part, and people never, that's why, of course, then they go into the, medical field and they're all like totally intertwined and interdependent from the pharmaceutical corporate complex. And and this is, so what's your take about
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the medical profession is a great example of, the way that we're controlled. The medical profession, it's worldwide, apart from probably Far Eastern countries, is totally dominated and run by pharmaceutical companies, which has infiltrated just about every element of the medical profession you can imagine. So therefore, we have these pharmaceutical products forced upon us, which more often than not, I'm not saying that they're all useless, but I think I think it's fair to say the vast majority of them are. And they're oil-based products. And where does that emanate from? From the Rockefeller oil industry from the late 19th century. It was Rockefeller and his family and his company that developed the current medical paradigm, whereby pharmaceutical drugs rule. It's just it's when you look into these things, it's so easy to find this out. It's actually becoming harder now because of the restrictions on the internet and stuff like that. But certainly a few years ago, it was so easy to find out this stuff, but people don't look because they're not aware. They're not aware that there's anything to look for. So, it's a very, very clever system overall. Evil, but clever.
Yeah, it's funny that you just said that, because I was just going to say, the people, this is the shocking part. People are just not aware. I mean, on the positive side, okay, the internet has done, a little bit waking up, people, if you really want to, you can access, you can get yourself access to all, to information or to your books, to your article, whatever it is, I mean, whatever we can think about, X, Twitter, or Elon, or whatever, all these platforms. I mean, it has become sort of a maybe it's an illusion of a decentralization of information. But anyway, you're talking about like Rockefeller. Isn't that like called the allopathic system? That's sort of bought all the medical universities and everything. So I don't know. Maybe you want to go into detail about that.
Yeah. Well, again, the entirety of the medical system was basically commandeered by Rockefeller, because obviously the guy was a very wealthy man. He was a billionaire, back over 100 years ago, and he had the money, which tells you everything, doesn't it? He had the money and the power to virtually create even more money by commandeering the medical profession. At one time, the medical profession used to treat illnesses and disease by herbal remedies, which were very, very, successful and effective. But now the medical profession absolutely shuns anything herbal, because it's been conditioned to do so by the pharmaceutical industry, which is run by the Rockefellers, and which was, excuse me, designed to it's just a money-making enterprise, basically. So, slowly what happened was that Rockefellers took over large hospitals in the United States, and only funded them if they track patients in a certain way with their allopathic drugs. And then it just expanded from there. And of course, as profits became higher and higher, it gave them the wherewithal to expand even further. And eventually the whole of the medical paradigm in the Western world came under their influence, and it's totally run and controlled by the pharmaceutical industry. And even doctors, they're so propagandized by it. Medical schools are run by the pharmaceutical companies. They're so propagandized by it, they don't even realize that there's an alternative to it. Pharmaceutical products have become the god of the medical industry in terms of, this is the only solution that they will accept. If you go to your doctor, certainly in this country, I can't speak for where you live, but if you go to your doctor and with anything, any ailment, illness, disease, whatever, they will prescribe a pharmaceutical drug for you, which is an oil-based solution. If you then say, well, I've been taking this herbal medication, and that seems to be working okay, they will absolutely shun you. They will say, it's just nonsense. It's just quackery. It's just, it's not proven. It's, the only real solution to them in their minds is the pharmaceutical oil-based solutions. And it's just nonsense. There is a far, far better way of doing things. I mean, I don't want to get onto stuff like vaccinations and all that, but again, vaccinations are just a con and scam. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. And on the positive side, I think all this, artificially created, whatever it's called, let's just not name it, the whole vaccine injection bioweapon program's been running. I think on the positive side, I think a lot of parents, especially parents, I think have woken up to the fact that not only, it's like, usually hear like, oh, but I'm not anti-vaccine. Oh, I am actually. Our kid is like totally non-vaccinated at all.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think a lot of people have woken up to this fact, and that it's not only, the mRNA, whatever, but it's like all the vaccinations, all the injections we've been getting, like, and probably, and I'm pretty sure if there are studies on that done, there's a difference on injections that people or children are getting now, and we then are sort of more or less our generations got like many, many decades ago, which had most probably much lower concentration of, or just what do you call it? These adjuvants, this mercury, lead, aluminium, and all this bullshit, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they definitely use them as a bioweapon now. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. Certainly not to the same extent years ago when I was a kid. You were a kid, but I was vaccinated as a kid. But when I was a child, the number of vaccinations that you had throughout your childhood were very few, probably 3, 4, 5, something like that.
The intervals, right? I mean, I remember we got it like in longer intervals, like more time in between. But now they're like getting, I don't know how many jabs in one session.
I read a report a few months ago about an American children are subjected to something like 300 different vaccinations during their childhood. Various, boosters and what have you. Something like 300. I can't remember the exact figure, but it just stuck in my head as being around that figure. And it's madness. It's madness to us, but it's not madness to them because they're doing it. Well, there's two elements to it, isn't there? There's the money element of it. I mean, pharmaceutical companies are raking in billions upon billions upon billions every year just on vaccinations alone, let alone the rest of the medication products that they foist onto us. But it's the money element, but it's also, we don't know what they're putting in this stuff now.
Yeah.
I definitely think there is, I hear and I read about all kinds of different things that are in vaccinations, especially the COVID ones, from a few years back. But I don't know for sure what's in there because you read so many conflicting different reports about it. But whatever it is, it's not good.
Well, we're seeing the consequences now. I mean, more and more,
Yeah, and again, they're normalizing this, aren't they? They're normalizing the fact that now children are having heart attacks. According to the mainstream, that's just life. But I'm sorry, but this never used to happen. Maybe 1 in a million or 1 in a billion, but not to the extent now. And the number of, I'm a football fan, you know, I go to football matches, I watch football. The number of matches that are getting stopped now for medical emergencies, not just on the playing field, but in the crowd as well. Again, it's been normalized, but it's not normal. It's not normal. This never used to happen. People are just dying in the droves, and this is a consequence, deliberate consequence.
This is madness. Oh my God. This
COVID
is
vaccines.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's really baffling, or let's say, I mean, we also have friends who, for whatever reason, they had to get jabbed. I even have a friend in Vienna who studied law with me. He said he just got jabbed because he wanted to go, he wanted to go out again, with his friends and just for having fun outside, it's just insane, without even questioning. I mean, I understand. I mean, I have empathy, for these people, but we didn't. I mean, and we have friends who come here like, I mean, they sort of have admittedly, they do say, sort of, I'm sorry, yeah, you told me so, sort of, but, and they're even themselves are shocked that how could people, become so super compliant, so hypnotized, so, obedient and subservient. This is insane.
Yeah, because it was a very clever propaganda campaign. The COVID scam. I mean, it was brilliant the way it was organized. It wasn't totally infallible because I don't know whether you're aware, but they actually had to curtail it earlier than they wanted to, because there's a document called the Rockefeller lockstep document, which states within that it was meant to go until 2025, so this year, in fact. But I think they curtailed it because, this is just my opinion, I've got no actual evidence for it, but it's my opinion. They curtailed it because they realized they were waking people up too quickly. And I've noticed that massively, that COVID had a fantastic effect on the truth movement. And that is that it boosted it by about, I would estimate, about 1,000%. Okay, because so many people realized that something wasn't right with the world and began investigating. And that's how most people start, isn't it? Going down the rabbit holes. So yeah, I think they realized that they'd taken it a step too far too quickly, and they had to curtail it. And that's exactly what happened. Do you remember how abruptly it stopped?
Yeah.
I mean, one week it was like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, it's fine. Okay, back to normal, chaps.
Yeah.
So
And these political puppets, the political puppets, I think they got a little bit scared, because whatever of potential. I mean, nothing's going to happen. Where's the accountability? Where's the criminal liability? It's nothing. I mean, it's civil, nothing happened. It's just, toothless, what do you call it? Like hearings or, investigation.
Yeah.
No, this is the really shocking part. Yeah. You said something, and I thought that's a beautiful sort of transitional moment, to go into technology. But you were talking about Rockefeller, and how it used to be like our grandmothers, use like herbs and other, natural. Now, remember probably, I don't know, was it the Rife technology, with working, let's just say on a technological level with frequencies, or I don't know, electromagnetic, magnetical fields, or anything that's like, sort of healing, like really healing and not just treating the symptoms. How did this happen? I mean, how could these technologies be? Now, besides, we don't know about all the inventors, the scientists, engineers, probably been, suppressed or I don't know, killed, suicided or whatever. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, Royal Raymond Rife, for those people who are not aware, he invented a technology which he claimed, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he was right, which claimed that it cured all known diseases, including cancer. But of course, his work was totally destroyed by Big Pharma, and he died a broken man. But what just to give you a little bit background to his work, it was a procedure. It was a microscope, and then he invented a very, very powerful microscope, first of all, to actually identify all the different kinds of microscopic organisms, bacteria, etc. And then he invented a machine called the Rife machine, named after himself, which once the patient's symptoms had been diagnosed, and they exposed these people's bodies to a frequency. It was like an oscillating device that he could that could quickly and effectively destroy the bacteria causing their illness. And it used resonance frequencies. So every single living object, well, every single object has its own resonance frequency. And if you could identify which of these bacterial organisms were infecting this person and set the machine to that resonance frequency and apply it to that person, then it would actually destroy the bacteria by virtually shaking them to death, vibrating them to death. Excuse me. To take another drink. Sorry. So yeah, and that's how it worked. It actually destroyed the bacteria, not through any medical, not through medicines or tablets, but through an electronic device that would actually vibrate the bacteria causing the illness to death. Of course, Big Pharma didn't approve of that. If his invention had been allowed to prevail, it would have deprived the pharma companies of billions of dollars in revenues. So yeah, I mean, what happened was in 1934, I think it was the University of Southern California, they brought together 16 terminal cancer patients from a hospital in California to Rice Laboratory for treatment. And this team included doctors and pathologists assigned to examine the patients. And Rife successfully cured 14 out of the 16 terminally ill patients, while the other 2 were cured after about 6 weeks. And despite that 100% cure rate, he was deprived of any acknowledgement for his accomplishment. In fact, he was attacked by both the media, of course, and the medical profession itself, and all his work was destroyed. He died a broken man, basically.
Now, I mean, I do remember like some of the other names, but he probably lived a little bit later. Wilhelm Reich. I mean, are there any other probably Nikola Tesla? Did he like come up with some, let's just say, health applications or?
Nikola Tesla invented something called the violet ray machine, which was a similar kind of thing. It used frequencies rather than actual medication to cure. I can't remember the ins and outs of that, but he invented a violet ray machine, which allegedly did work and still does work today. And similarly with Rife, you can actually buy Rife machines nowadays that have been back engineered, and some people swear by them. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you hand on heart whether it really works or not, but certainly lots and lots of people believe that they do, because what happened was, after the technology was destroyed in the 1930s, over the decades, someone actually back engineered one of his machines, and now they are freely available. I mean, you can buy them on the internet. They cost a few £100 in sterling. But yeah, the Tesla violet ray machine was I don't think it worked in the same way, but it produced this beam of energy that was allegedly, if you could place it somewhere in your body where the illness was occurring, then that was supposed to cure whatever it was that was wrong with you. I don't know the details about that. But yeah, I mean, Tesla was a very interesting guy. He invented lots of other stuff as well. And shortly after his death, the FBI classified all his papers, and they magically disappeared. No one knows what happened to them. And in fact, for many years, scientists and researchers have been trying to find Tesla's missing papers, but without success. I think it's safe to say now that they're probably destroyed by opposing vested interest, because at the end of the day, what all this stuff is about protecting revenue streams.
Right.
So it's not about the people. The powers that be, or the powers that shouldn't be, as I call them, are not interested in us. They're not interested in us as people. All they're interested in is using us as a cash point. We are
about control system.
Yeah, absolutely. We are just a revenue stream for them, and that's all they're interested in.
Now, is it true that Donald Trump's uncle went, was part of the FBI? I don't know, a CIA or whatever it was, some kind of, I don't know, the part of the system. And when Nikola Tesla died, he allegedly or whatever, reportedly went into, that hotel where and confiscated all the. Is there some kind of connection to Donald Trump's uncle?
I don't know I've not heard about that, to be honest. I don't know about whether it was Donald Trump's uncle or not, but certainly is exactly what happened. They stole all his work and disappeared it, and nobody knows what happened to it. But no, I don't know the connection between Donald Trump at all. But it wouldn't surprise me. Everything's connected. All these people, they're all, interlocking.
Yeah, it's a really heavy, a pill, or I don't know, tablet to swallow. I think for most people, whether you call it red pill or black pill, when you really understand, the connection and the depth of this whole thing. I mean, for me, it's always, at the root of it, the whole, the money system, the fiat money, centralized central banking system. But because with all its tentacles and symptoms that we have right now, of course, we could start talking about 1971, the Nixon shock, when they decoupled it from gold and everything went downwards. I mean, divorces went up, poverty, illiteracy, I mean, everything, health-wise. Now, the thing is that people, I think, cannot comprehend or even imagine how much, not only on a monetary, materialistic level, but on a comfort level, joy level, on a technological level, has been systematically stolen from us or withheld from us, at least in the last, I don't know, 100, 150 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Again, it's about control. It goes back to what I was saying earlier in the show. The only way that a few thousand can control a few billion is by imposing covert, strict controls, and that takes many, many, many forms. As you say, they try to dumb us down, and they also try to take away the joy from our life, because and they create fear all the time, and that's what we're getting off the topic a little bit now by saying this, but all these false flag operations that have gone on over the decades. It's all about creating fear. And this is just another major way that they control us, through fear, because a fearful people are much more easy to control than a happy people who are content with their lives. Fearful people tend to have the attitude of running to the government and saying, you've got to protect us from this. And of course they do that. And that's called the Hegelian dialectic: problem, reaction, solution. Create a problem, wait for the reaction, and then offer the solution that you already wanted to happen in the first place. So yeah, it's all connected. Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Ashton Forbes, who's been looking at that? By now, it's like irrefutable, undeniable evidence that those, the MH370 Malaysian airplane that vanished. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like really, I mean, when you look at that video, and it's been like so many, what do you call it? Experts coming on the show or verifying the authenticity, right, of that video. So whatever that is, it's authentic. They couldn't debunk it. It's just real, and there's a lot of reports and insider whistleblowing testimonials that it's like super authentic. Now the thing is, the technology behind it is what Ashton Forbes has been super focused, researching, analyzing, and talking to a bunch of other people who've been working, under NDAs, for Grumman or Lockheed Martin, all these are corporate, but they can't really talk about it. But from the principal workings, with it be, 0-point energy, Casimir effect, all these exotic terminology like wormholes or teleportation. I mean, what if it's, what if everything, all of it is real? I mean, beside the free energy aspect. Is it your opinion, or is it your perspective that we are living in times now that it's accelerating so fast that we are getting there? We are somehow, with it be some kind of real full, open source disclosure, or getting the technology, because at the end of the day, the technology is supposed to serve humanity, make our lives easier, you know, I mean, with its energy transportation or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, though, isn't it? I don't know the answer to that question specifically about whether there'll be a disclosure or not. I mean, maybe one day, maybe not in my lifetime, but hopefully at some point in our children's lifetimes. But yeah, I mean, suppressed technology, it's all about free energy. You know, what I mean by free energy is, you know, for those who are not aware, is it's free in two senses, actually. It's free as in as much as it generates more energy out than energy in, which is the old perpetual motion idea, which is thoroughly debunked by science inaccurately, in my view. And free also as in it costs nothing to produce. Okay. I mean, the general consensus is that there's no such thing as free energy, but this is just propaganda and nonsense. It's designed totally to protect vested interests. You know, stop me if you've heard that particular story before. But yeah, there's so many inventions. I'll name a few: wireless electricity, motionless electromatic generator, mechanical heater, water-powered car, implosion engine, cold fusion, and all these have been suppressed because they interfere with the revenue streams of large corporations, because they cannot actually make money from these inventions. They're only interested in inventions that are going to make money for them. So anything that benefits humanity that is going to come free, they don't want that. I don't know whether I've answered the question or not there, but I'm just rambling a bit. But yeah, I mean, this whole scenario is wrong. You know, when you think about it, they've got everything the wrong way around. And again, it comes back to what I was saying before. It's all profit related. If something doesn't make a profit for the corporations and the people who sit up here above governments, then they suppress it. It's a simple equation.
Exactly, John. And you know, the reason why there's so much counterintelligence, psyops bullshit, you know, with this Louis Elizondo, Grush, you know, all these podcasters that are like, you know, emphasizing the alien aspect. I mean, come on. I mean, we are beyond that. We know there are, you know, whatever, subterrestrial, interterrestrial, extraterrestrial, aliens. Come on. I mean, we are already beyond that. The real issue is the technology. And this is what I think Ashton Forbes are also trying to constantly. It's like, you know, forget all these psyops, these distractions. This is really counterintelligence bullshit. All right. We need to focus on the existing technologies. It's there. But the question is, of course, how do you get it out of this control, even with people who are in the so-called, you know, political, governmental, whatever, military industrial complex? They don't even have access to that, because once they call, it's like, hey, you, sir, you no need to know. And then they just hang up. I mean, one thing, you know, maybe Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer has definitely done, you know, a great job, I think, in the last few days. I mean, we might not, you know, agree with everything he says or whatever, but he's been trying, I mean, you know, with his contacts, with his interviews, with all these whistleblowers, insiders. I mean, allegedly something's coming out in a big comprehensive way. And he has sort of a life insurance on that, you know, but it just, you know, it's still just reports, you know, it's self-testimonies. But do you see like do you see hope at the end of the horizon? Because it's about, you know, real human civilization, about human survival. I mean, I don't even want to go into the rabbit hole of, you know, the magnetic field of the Earth is declining, reducing its, you know, and this is why we're more vulnerable to the cosmic rays, to the sun and everything else. The magnetic pole shift that is estimated to happen between 2038 and 2050, plus minus. I mean, we got to connect the dots, but technology is what could, I don't know, maybe, you know, help us create an artificial magnetic, you know, shielding, maybe in order to, you know, prevent this Earth disaster cycle, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't particularly buy into all that stuff anyway. I think, you know, the reality that they've created for us is far it runs far deeper than we imagine. For example, I mean, I don't even believe in outer space, mate, to be honest. I just don't believe that it exists. I think that it's all one massive psyop. And I don't have time to go into all that now, but just take that as read for now. So therefore, all this stuff that you're just mentioning It has no meaning at all. I think the whole thing is fake, to be honest. And I think we live in an enclosed world which has got no access to anything outside it at all. So I just think all this outer space stuff, aliens, space aliens, you name it, I just think it's all complete nonsense. I know that's a really big statement.
No, that's a big statement. Yeah. Could you elaborate? Like, okay, let's just start with the moon. I mean, for me, it's like I'm pretty certain that the moon is like artificially, whatever. Yeah. It's an artificial creation. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's there. You know, with all the, you know, as you pointed out in your books, you know, it's like it can't be like all the coincidences, the numbers that you know, the whatever, the distance, the angle, the, you know, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. Well, I'm not sure I believe in a flat Earth. It possibly is flat. I mean, people take, oh, flat Earth, just nonsense, just nonsense. And I actually believed that until a few years ago, until I started looking into it. And then once you start looking into it, you realize that, okay, there are a lot of shall we say, there's a lot of evidence to say that the Earth is not a globe. Okay, I know people will be switching off in their droves now, saying, "Oh, this guy's an idiot." But honestly, once I started looking into it, I never thought in a million years that I would even consider the fact that the Earth might be flat. But now, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that I'm not convinced that it isn't. If you get the logic there. So yeah, if that is the case. And again, this comes into the new book that I've written about, what is the secret of Antarctica? Why are they hiding it from us? Well, the premise in the book is that the Earth goes on beyond Antarctica. Okay, so they don't want us to know because there's another race of people living beyond I'm not saying this is true, by the way, I'm just telling you about the book. There's another race of people living beyond the ice wall. If you go beyond the ice wall and beyond the extent of Antarctica, it carries on. And again, if the Earth is actually a globe, I think it is much bigger than they tell us. Have you ever seen that map that hangs in the lobby of the United Nations buildings in New York?
I've seen like an image of somebody posted it. I think I've taken a look at it. Yeah.
I mean, that depicts an Earth that is much, much bigger than what they tell us. Mm-hmm. So our little bit of the Earth is there in like a circle. And then there's all this other stuff all around it. Lots and hundreds of other continents beyond Antarctica.
Yeah.
I mean, who really knows? Nobody can prove that the Earth is a globe because all this NASA stuff is just designed to fool us. NASA is a satanic organization. It was
a front organization
devised and created by Satanists.
Yeah.
So I again, without going into too much detail, I really believe that the whole of reality is not what they tell us, and I very much suspect that the Earth is not a planet floating in space. Again, crazy man, I know, but there you go. I found lots of evidence to say this is true.
Yeah,
and I've forgotten where all this was going now. To be honest, when
I read about the so-called flat Earth, I mean the arguments it's like pretty, convincing, to be honest. I mean, it's like rational, logical. You can just, you can make your own deductions, of course. Now that aside, but I'm a very open mind, critical, and reflect. I try to reflect upon it. But I'm totally an advocate of the inner Earth.
Right.
Maybe Antarctica could be one of them. A sort of an access to one of the access portals to the inner Earth, whether it has an inner sun or not, whatever it is. But you think that's realistic?
I think it is realistic. Yeah, I'm not saying it's the truth. I mean, we don't know, do we? But certainly that's something that Admiral Richard Byrd alluded to in his diary. Mm-hmm. Whether his diary is fake or not, we don't know. But it's been presented as the truth. I mean, he allegedly went beyond Antarctica and met this race of people who, and he believes that he went into the inner Earth, in effect, where it was like a green and pleasant land, with forests and streams and rivers and trees and all the rest of it. And he met this group of people who were similar to us, but not exactly the same as us. Whether that is true or not, I don't know, but it's certainly plausible. it's fascinating when you look into the whole thing. I know it sounds crazy, doesn't it? When you just come into this kind of world of truth, to think that this kind of thing could be real, but nevertheless, knowing what I know about the way that we are manipulated into believing things that aren't true, nothing surprises me anymore, to be honest. Nothing, and like you, I'm totally open-minded. I will change my opinion if I see evidence to contradict it, so I've got I always say to people, I've got no axe to grind. I've got no, what do they say? They've got no dog in the race or whatever. I don't have a particular agenda that I want to follow. I just try and follow the truth wherever that may lead, and that leads to some pretty startling facts and conclusions.
Yeah, John, this is why, to be honest with you, this is why I love your book. I love your books. I love your research. I love your way of thinking. And I wish every child, even especially including our child, our daughter, would grow up like just look at the evidence. Look at be open-minded, 360 degrees. Look at everything, form your own opinion, and do your own research. Question everything, even question me. This is what I want from our children. Let's just question even ourselves. It's okay, to question. I mean, you can still change your mind or change your perspective, or maybe a little bit, maybe. But it doesn't matter, right? This is the real science. This is about research. This is about, investigative journalism, but it's already died out. Investigative journalism has almost died out. I mean, there's really just a handful of investigative journalism, whatever level, but on a solution level, a solution-oriented level. I mean, would it be, by the way, what's your position on Bitcoin? I mean, as a sort of a root solution, is it something that you've somehow done a little bit work on that, or trying to understand like what is Bitcoin, what could Bitcoin accomplish to really deroot this whole criminal satanic system? Yeah,
it's not something that I've looked into massively. No, I kind of vaguely understand what it's all about, and how it's trying to bypass the controlled money system that's in place at the moment. To me, in my view, anything that tries to do that has got to be an advantage. It's got to be positive for mankind. So yeah, but I don't know the mechanics of it. I don't really know how it works, because it's not something that I've kind of investigated or looked into.
Okay, but on other levels, like what would your approach would? I mean, if you just imagine it, like what could help? Would it be open sourcing, or I don't know, decentralizing the research, or making things accessible? Is that are there solutions you've been thinking about? Like, how could we, bring out the truth, disclosure, whatever it is, development of new technologies from different, inventors?
Yeah, well, let me tell you about the problems that we face in terms of that, in terms of the suppression of technology as one example. Who benefits from that? We've got to look at that. Who benefits from that? What forces are facilitating all the cover-ups? Well, we know that there's an absolute money monopoly in place now throughout the world. And this monopoly is in the hands of a tiny clique of the world's wealthiest family, and their families, and their goal is to totally control the entire world and control all our lives through the availability of resources. So an independent source of wealth in the hands of individuals, whether it's through Bitcoin or whether it's through free energy, would ruin that plan completely. So they're doing everything they possibly can to stop that situation from coming to pass. Economies, they can be controlled by raising or lowering of interest rates. But if an independent source of wealth, again, such as Bitcoin or free energy, was present, this stranglehold that they have on the economy would be totally negated. And in effect, this technology, whatever it is, it would seriously impact the value of money, and therefore the balance of power in their favor, because these people obviously want no competition whatsoever. So free energy and things like Bitcoin, they're not just something that they want to suppress. It's got to be permanently suppressed and totally eradicated. And to do that, there are all sorts of techniques that they use intimidation, even murder of inventors of free energy. They use character assassination. They destroy people's life's work with fire, burn the laboratories down, etc. They hire expert debunkers to actually diss the inventions, and claim that they're nonsense. They use techniques like buying up and shelving products. That's a fairly common thing that they do. They destroy the technology, and they also promote this fake principle that free energy is impossible. It's a government's worst nightmare. And the power that be's greatest nightmare, because it would lead to a total reordering of the balance of power, and it could even lead to war in attempts to prevent others from gaining competitive advantages. Everybody would want it, and yet wish to prevent everyone else from getting it. It would mean free energy, for example. It would mean an unlimited abundance of everything, and it would mean a much more equal world for everybody. And it would be the engine of an economy of an enlightened society, a society where everyone's individual needs will be fulfilled, because no one can become rich or rule the world with it. Exactly. And that might sound like communism, but communism's just an absolute anathema to me. All I'm advocating really is a fair and just society, where individual people matter, not just a so-called greater or common good. And by the way, whenever you hear that particular saying, the common good, you can be sure that it's a synonym for communism. But society shouldn't be controlled by the wealth of huge multinational corporations and conglomerates, which is the current situation. What the answer is to it, I don't know. All we can keep doing, as with everything else that we bring to the world, the attention of the world, is just keep hammering the point home until people wake up. And by the way, I think one of the things you asked me just then was that, what do I feel about the future? Is there hope for the future? And I think absolutely there is. There's absolutely hope for the future. It may not come in my lifetime or your lifetime, but it will happen. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I'm very much what's known as a fatalist. I believe that what will be, will be. I'm not saying that we have no free will. We do have free will to a certain extent, but I believe that there is a grand master plan for the world. I believe in a creator, and I think that things will eventually sort themselves out. We are just going through a very torrid time at the moment, but things will get better. As more and more people wake up, the more and more pressure these people are under to accelerate the agenda, and accelerating the agenda is a problem for them because it wakes more people up, and it's a continuous cycle. So eventually there will become a tipping point, I believe, whereby most people in the world know exactly what's going on, and then these people who run the world and run our lives, will have nowhere to go. So I'm sorry for that ramble, but
no, beautifully said. No, I couldn't say it better, to be honest with you, John. Really beautifully said. The reason I just, in a nutshell, why I and many other people, we even have no gold bugs who went, who are like total Bitcoiners now, because a lot of people, there's a slogan, Bitcoin fixes this, and a lot of Bitcoiners say, if it wasn't for Bitcoin, we wouldn't have, to be honest with you, we wouldn't have much hope for the future. Why? Because it just doesn't repair something. It really transforms the whole system, deroots the whole criminal satanic system. Because for the first time in human history, we couldn't even imagine that. We have a money. We have of course, it's like purely digital, but it's purely that's the only decentralized money, absolutely scarce with 21 million, divisible, all the properties that money could have, unconfiscatable, divisible. You can even memorize 12 or 24 words, go over the border anywhere you want, and you could just have your own wealth in your head, actually. Unless, you get tortured or whatever. But, and you probably would love to maybe read a book or maybe talk to Jeff Booth, who wrote The Price of Tomorrow, Why Deflation is the Key to an Abundant Future, meaning Bitcoin, because of its absolute scarcity, would create a deflationary economy, meaning things as it already naturally, happens in technological levels, everything would get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and we would have, beyond our imagination and comprehension, so much, innovation and inventions and joy and comfort for humanity that we couldn't even fathom right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Totally. Yeah.
So this is why the excitement and the enthusiasm about Bitcoins in a nutshell, So I'm just hoping, once this critical mass is reached, and we don't need, 8 billion people, we just need probably 4 or 5% of the global population. And unfortunately, people are like sheeps, they just follow, and then everything, they just benefit. Everyone benefits. It's really, serving humanity for the first time in human history.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah. Spot on. And that kind of what your version of what I was saying a few moments ago. But yeah, it's perfect. That is the solution, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Any final words or words of wisdom that you want to or maybe name some of your upcoming projects or books, or where can people find you, please?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know about words of wisdom, but yeah, I'd like to reiterate what I said before about, because a lot of people, I do stand-up talks all around the country. A lot of people say to me afterwards, especially people who are new to the world of truth, they said to me, how do you live through all this, John? Doesn't it just drive you crazy? I live in fear. I'm terrified of everything that I read on the news and blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, don't live in fear. The only thing that you have to fear, it's a glib saying, but the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. They want you to live in a fearful state. So don't. All you have to do, compartmentalize all this stuff, stick it to the back of your head, and only bring it out when you need to do it, when you're researching or when you whatever, writing, blah, blah, blah. Just live your lives, love your family, love your friends. Wake up every morning, just think, it's another day today. It's a beautiful sunny day for a change. And, I'm going to have a nice time today. I'm going to live my life. Don't let this dominate your whole lives. Just put it to one side. So that's my words of wisdom, such as they are. But yeah, with regard to my work, I have a website called falsificationofhistory.co.uk. Whereas there's lots of stuff on there, various articles. You can buy my books from there, all kinds of stuff. I've obviously got an Amazon author page, which, if you go to Amazon wherever you are in the world and type in my name, John HAMER, you'll find my author page with all my books on it. I also have a BitChute channel, which I've not updated recently, but there's still plenty of good stuff on there. And that is John HAMER Official. And absolutely. If you want to put my contact details down at the bottom of this interview, then by all means do that. I don't mind people getting in contact with me. So yeah, that's about it, really, I think.
Yeah, definitely put everything on the show notes. But, again, as I said in the beginning, I wish I would have found you earlier, or some of your interviews. This is, I found your BitChute because of your link, but otherwise I never stumbled upon you, on whatever it is, on any other platform. And I think you should do more interviews. And I would really want you to, if you have, the interest and time, to talk maybe one day to Ashton Forbes or Daniel Prince or some other podcasters. It would be great. You've done really great research, John, and I think it needs to go out, and would be great also for the kids, to read those books. I would make it mandatory for my kid, to read one of, just to open their minds, and totally
Yeah.
unfold their potential, right?
Definitely. Well, by all means, put me in touch with these people, because I have no idea how to get in contact with them. If you wanted to do that, I'd be very grateful.
I'll connect you. Definitely.
Thank you. Just on the subject of podcasts, I've done hundreds and hundreds of podcasts over the years, and all of them, where the link is still in existence, are on my website. So there is a section for podcasts and interviews. There are literally hundreds, or there were. Some of them, the links are broken now, etc., because they're so old. But yeah, there's lots of stuff on there on the website for anybody who's interested in following up on this. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna follow up on you, John. I hope we can continue this. Maybe, I don't know, 6-12 months of time, or maybe in a panel discussion. That would be great. Maybe with some other people who can complement us, or I don't know, maybe or I'm sure a lot of questions for you.
Sure. Well, listen, you don't have to wait that long. I mean, I don't mind. Whenever you want to interview me, you just let me know, and I'm happy to come on.
Great. So great. Happy to have this conversation, John. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Thank
have
you.
a great
Thank
day.
you for having me. You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.